Welcome everyone. Today in Clash Royale we are going to be trying out a Voldemort themed deck. When I think of Voldemort, I think of his very strange facial features, particularly his lack of a nose. So we're going to be playing all the cards in Clash Royale that do not have a nose either. That's why it's Voldemort themed. All the skeletons don't have a nose, so technically this deck could just be filled with skeletons, but I wanted to add a little bit of variety. So we only have a few different kinds of skeletons, kind of an offensive card, a defensive card, and then an offensive and defensive card. We then have both golems because neither golem has a nose. I think the ice golem does, but the regular golem and the elixir golem do not. None of the spirits have noses either, so we have ice spirit and then furnace, which spawns fire spirits, and the furnace itself doesn't have a nose either, and neither does the mini P.E.K.K.A. So this is the Voldemort deck with no noses in this entire deck. We're going to see how it does. It should have some synergy, just because a few of the cards, the Furnace, the Mini P.E.K.K.A, and the Golem, are in the main deck that I use anyway. It's kind of a good beatdown strategy, and Elixir Golem is kind of just a budget Golem push if we need it. So it shouldn't be a terrible deck. I was thinking recently about how important it is to be consistent with things, and how just consistency is what, I think that's what sets the people that succeed apart from the people that don't. Um, I could go over there in my yard and play some basketball for a couple of hours, but I wouldn't be an NBA player by the end of it because those, those people, the NBA players, they have been playing for years and sometimes even decades, and that consistency is what sets them apart from me. That's the reason why I'm not an NBA player, is because they've been doing it for so long. Um, for me, I found that it isn't necessarily hard to do something for the first little bit, because when you're trying out something new, it's kind of new, it's exciting. There's an element of newness to it, and that's also typically when you learn the most as well, because you are if you don't know anything about it, you're kind of learning for the first time. You're making a good amount of progress typically, and I found that the first little bit of something is usually the easiest for me to do. But after that progress kind of wears off, after the newness of the activity kind of wears off, after your progress starts to slow, I found that that's when it gets kind of difficult to keep moving forward. And I think the people that do keep moving forward and that keep working hard, those are the people that succeed at what they're doing. I think we'll just go. Yeah, he's going E-Giant now, so we'll go Golem. Um, Even something that I don't really find interesting, I think I could still do it for a little bit. Like I don't think that pottery sounds very interesting. Like, it just, I don't think pottery would interest me, but I could still do it for a little bit just because I do think it would be fun for the first little bit. It would be fun to kind of to learn something new, to do something new. It would just be a new activity. So, like, it would be, I could do pottery for a little bit. It would be fun to learn, but again, after that kind of wears off, after the newness of the pottery wears off, and my learning kind of starts to slow down, and I'm not seeing as much progress externally, that's when it would be difficult to keep moving forward with it. And I think there's um, a couple of different ways that you can, a couple of different ways that I found that kind of helps you to be consistent and helps you to stick with it. The first thing is to kind of lower your expectations. If you go into it with the expectation that progress is going to be slow, that things are going to be difficult, that you're not going to learn everything right away, that there's going to be plateaus, if you kind of go in with that expectation, then typically you're not as disappointed when you encounter something like that because you're expecting it. Um, I think that the second thing that I found is to just kind of have a bigger picture with everything. Also, we're gonna lose this game if we don't get some damage, because we don't have a spell and he has a lightning. So we'll have to probably start playing our E-Giant now. So the first thing I found is to kind of lower your expectations, and the second thing that I found that oftentimes helps out is just taking a look at the bigger picture, taking a look at what ultimately your bigger goals are, and not focusing just on short-term success. Because if you do that, then I don't think you're going to be. It's going to be very easy to be disappointed. So those are two things that I found that you can do to kind of be a bit more consistent. Kind of take a step back, look at things from afar, and just lower your expectations a bit, and maybe you'll find that it's a little bit easier to stick with something when your progress is slowed. I've kind of encountered that with YouTube. When I first started, the views and whatnot, they were non-existent. Like when I first started uploading, there were no views on any of my videos. But then after kind of consistently uploading for a little while, for I think probably 2 or 3 months of consistent uploading, then it started to get a little bit of traction, started to get a little bit of views, and things started to go up like really steeply. Like the numbers and the views like shot up quite a bit in, I think it was November or December. But then they promptly cooled off, and progress started to slow. I wasn't, there were not as many, the external factors weren't what was moving me forward. And I think that's the case with a lot of things. Is when your progress slows, external things are not what's moving you forward. And so you have to kind of find a different source of drive. And I found that kind of comes internally. It's either a love for what you're doing. It's maybe if it's like a particular job or whatnot, maybe you're doing it for your family, maybe you're wanting to provide for them, and so your family is kind of the driving force. But also, I'm realizing we have no air defense in this deck, so we're just gonna have to let that balloon take our entire tower. And so that was kind of the case with YouTube. Is once the views went down, and money wasn't a factor, because I'm not monetized on YouTube, so there's not any income yet. And so when money wasn't a factor, and when external validation and views and whatnot were not a factor, then you just have to find a different thing that drives you. And so for me, it's like I enjoy making YouTube videos. I enjoy sharing content and sharing things with the world. I think it's just something that I enjoy doing, and so that was kind of what was driving me, was just a love for what I was doing. And I guess I kind of went into it with very few expectations as well, so that definitely helped. And so if you guys are struggling with something, maybe you're just struggling to find motivation in whatever it is that you're maybe you're struggling to find motivation in whatever it is that you're doing. I would just lower your expectations, kind of take a step back at the bigger picture and see where you want to be in the long run. And then also make sure that you're doing what you love, because if you're not doing what you love, then there's no point in continuing to do it. So those are some things that I found to be more consistent, because consistency, I think, is what sets the people apart. It sets apart the people that succeed from the ones that don't. That was the Voldemort deck. It was not great, as you can probably tell. We did lose both games, but hopefully you enjoyed the video and the message regardless, and I will see all you guys in the next video.